we'll go ahead and get things kicked off here this afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive premiere of NHA's newest product, MA SkillsBuilder Clinical. My name is Kayla Steffen, and I'm the Business Development Manager here at the National Health Career Association. I'll serve as your host through today's presentation. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We know everyone's busy, especially in the healthcare space right now. So thank you for all that you do on a daily basis, all that you continue to do, and all that you continue to navigate. Before we get started, we do want to just align on a few general housekeeping rules and set some expectations for our time together today. First of all, this webinar is being recorded. So in follow-up to our session today, you will receive this recording as well as some general information about our MA SkillsBuilder clinical resource that will arrive to you via email, the email address that you registered with. So we are recording and you will receive the recording. You'll receive the slide deck and any other relevant information to this resource. We do welcome questions during the session today. So please type those in the chat function if you can. So I have some NHA teammates that are monitoring the chat today, and we'll do our best to address all of your questions. We might address those as we go. We might save some time at the end for those, but if for whatever reason we're unable to address your question today, or if we don't catch that in the chat, we will be capturing the chat and we will send a personal follow-up to you after today's session. So feel free to ask away in the chat section there. If you have questions that are specific to your NHA account, we do ask that you reach out to your NHA specialist directly for the most efficient response. If you don't know who that is, that's okay too. If you just type that in the chat, we'll make sure that we get you connected to the right person, or maybe you don't have an NHA account yet, which is also okay, and we can get you going with that also. Again, we're here to do our best to provide you with the best information that we can, to connect the dots in the best way that we can, and to provide the most efficient and timely responses. So again, today's demo is an exclusive look at our newest resource that is set to release February 1st, called MA SkillsBuilder Clinical. We're just weeks away from this exciting launch. We're so excited about this launch, and we're super excited to share it with you today. So again, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking the time. We know that that's not always easy to do, and thank you for all that you continue to do in your profession. So let's dive in with just a little bit of background information to level set and align today. So many of you, or some of you, are familiar with NHA, but maybe how you're familiar with us is beyond, or we're kind of evolving as an organization. So we want to just provide a basic level set here today, or if you're not familiar with us, we'll give you that foundational information here. So most of you know NHA is a certification agency. We have our 8 fully accredited national certification exams and our preparation resources. And that's who we've been as a company for over 30 years. We're really good at national certification, that assessment, and that preparation for that exam. In fact, NHA is the largest allied health certification agency in the nation, and particular to medical assistant, NHA produces more medical assistant certifications annually than any other accredited agency. NHA is constantly plugged into the needs of the industry. We work closely with both healthcare educators and healthcare employers like you across the country. And so as we hear about skills gaps or teaching gaps in the industry, we listen to, what are the pain points that exist, and we try to evaluate and bridge these gaps. And so that's why we've evolved from being just a certification agency to producing resources like Personability, which NHA released last year. When that soft skills, or excuse me, that was in 2020, which is soft skills training or essential skills training for healthcare professionals that's delivered via really rich and engaging virtual simulation. It's geared towards healthcare professionals specifically. It's not often that you find a soft skills or an essential skills training that's geared specifically to healthcare professionals, and it's geared towards driving behavior change. And we've released resources like Principles of Health Coaching that teach things like motivational interviewing skills. It builds and expands on those skills that are taught in Personability to help lead to better patient engagement, better outcomes. We dive into, again, motivational interviewing. We look at things like social determinants of health, again, leading towards patient adherence, patient engagement, patient outcomes. Most recently, we released our medical terminology and our anatomy and physiology resources in 2021 to really just, again, these are tough. These are tough subjects to teach, first of all, and they're foundational. They're foundational components of a training program, but also for that profession. So when we look at the medical assistant profession, medical terminology, that's the language that we use. A&P is the number one most important yet hard to master skill. And if any of you remember the last time you picked up a med term or an A&P textbook, you were probably pretty overwhelmed. I know I was. And so we set these up in this really rich and engaging learn and apply methodology. We rip out a lot of the noise and we provide what's necessary that employers have said, hey, we need our medical assistants to know these things as it relates to med term, as it relates to A&P. And that's what's included in the resource. And so it's built for job ready. It prepares them for the certification exam candidates. And so those are just some of the ways that we've evolved as an organization. So again, I say all of this to show you here on the screen the direction that NHA is moving to more broadly serve the medical assistant profession. So by this summer of 2022, NHA will have a comprehensive learning track for medical assistant training programs. So what does that mean for me as a healthcare employer? Number one of the things that we often hear from healthcare employers and that we're hearing more and more often is, gosh, we're not being fed enough medical assistants. We don't have this qualified pipeline of MAs coming into us. We need medical assistants badly. And so we might just start our own training program. How do we do that? How do we get started? And we have a track for you. We have all of the resources and the components of that program that you would need. And we'll walk through those things together here with a specific focus on this SkillsBuilder Clinical today. Now, what I do want to make very clear is, does this mean that we're replacing educators in the market? No, healthcare educators, if you're a healthcare educator on the line here today, you are needed. It takes everyone at the table right now to fill the MA shortage, to fill the MA gap. So there is room at the table for everyone. Please stay at the table because you are needed. We do need a qualified pipeline of MAs. We're trying to provide simple resources to take care of some of that heavy lift so that we can produce MAs that are quality MAs with the skills that you need faster. And so that's kind of this comprehensive learning track here. So again, just to overview this, our foundation as an organization is in the exam itself and the preparation resources. Those are out, those are available today. Foundational resources like medical terminology and anatomy and physiology, again, those exist. I talked a little bit about how those are set up in this rich and engaging learn, apply methodology, again, taking care of or taking out some of that noise that's often included with MedTerm and A&P and providing specifically what's needed for that MA on the job. Talked a little bit about personability, the soft essential skills training for medical assistants geared towards driving behavior change with rich and engaging virtual simulation. Principles of health coaching builds and expands on that, where we get into patient engagement, patient adherence, patient outcomes, helping to upskill that medical assistant to where we're diving into things like social determinants of health, motivational interviewing, et cetera. Then on that learning track, we have what we'll talk about the most today, which is MA SkillsBuilder Clinical. We're going to dive into that shortly, but then the last stop that will round out the journey is MA SkillsBuilder Admin. This is scheduled to release this summer, so summer of 2022. So if you're familiar with the CCMA exam test plan, this completes it right here. So those are those front office duties that medical assistants often perform. Also that will be bolted into this and that will be released at the same time as MA SkillsBuilder Admin will be what we call foundations. So when you think of medical law and ethics, healthcare systems and settings, things like that, that align to that CCMA test plan, that align to kind of a traditional medical assistant training program. That will also release at the same time as admin this summer. It can be included in either admin or clinical, but it will be released at the same time as the admin. It's not listed as something separate on this track because there's no additional cost for it. It will just live inside of either admin or clinical. So that's this comprehensive learning track that we're headed down the path for. Again, everything you see on the screen is now available with the exception of these two resources. Clinical will release February 1st, so weeks away. Admin is set for the summer of 2022. Okay, so let's dive into MA Skills Builder Clinical a little deeper. I'm going to reset my screen here. So again, I'm not going to belabor this particular slide with you because I think if anyone feels this, it is our healthcare employers that are on the phone with us today. We know that there is a medical assistant shortage in the marketplace right now. Again, NHA is dedicated to advocating on behalf of this profession to fill the teaching gaps, to fill the skills gaps that exist in the market. And that is why we're on this track towards a comprehensive learning suite. But if you don't have to purchase the whole comprehensive learning suite, we can take components of that. And oftentimes what we hear from healthcare employers is they had a good foundation, but man, they could use some polishing with some of those clinical skills. Maybe they didn't know how to take a manual blood pressure, or we needed to expand the bandwidth of my clinic educator staff, right? There's only so many of us and there's a lot of MAs. And so how do we broaden who we're able to serve? How do we create something that's rich and engaging and we're not just having them read something about clinical skills? And so that's where MA Skills Builder Clinical comes in. And so this focuses on, again, making sure that a candidate is prepared to think critically on the job, to perform the clinical skills. It's focused on the key skills that were requested by healthcare employers across the nation. And when we talk about saving time and money, again, this is how do we help you expand your bandwidth? And we'll get into that here a little bit more. And again, so this is a highly engaging and immersive training. We have rich video, we have walkthroughs, frequent opportunity to practice, interactive quizzing. So again, it puts the learner in the role of a medical assistant. And it can be used in a variety of ways. So maybe you're having all new hires go through this. Maybe it exists as part of a training program that you have just to feed yourself a qualified pipeline of candidates. Maybe it's something that you put into place as you see those skills gaps throughout the clinic to say, hey, I don't have a clinical educator that can work one-on-one with you all the time. Let's just get a baseline level set on what are the skills that we need to scrub and polish, and then we can better focus on those things. So there's a wide variety of ways that this can be used in the employer or in the clinic setting. It can be used as an upskilling tool. So oftentimes, how do I take this individual from an MA1 to an MA2 or whatever that career ladder mechanism looks like? Oftentimes that means they might have to prove certain competencies. So potentially it could be used for that as well, or like a career laddering thing. So again, it's essentially something that's kind of offered in a more hands-on format to help your MAs think critically and make these on-the-job decisions. This aligns to the CCMA certification exam. So if you're looking to add this as part of a training program, it does help with that exam readiness. There's a lot of data built into this. So again, you can identify those specific skills gaps so that as you're limited in your time and in your bandwidth across your educational team, you can extend that. So you can say, hey, here's specifically where we need to focus with this clinic or with this practice or with this individual. So it's really meant to expand your bandwidth. And it allows for the practical application of these skills. We're able to do that in an interactive way. And finally, again, it aligns with these employer key competency needs. And so as we look at how it works, what we did is we went out to healthcare employers across the nation, and we said, rank order these 250 MA clinical skills. And so after that research, we divided this we landed at these 12 modules and 39 skills to focus. And that's something that's really important. So this is kind of determined by a variety of healthcare employers across the nation saying, these are the areas that we really need to have polished for our MAs when they come in. These are the things that are important. It's not to say that there's not other skills that are important to us, but in the spirit of not trying to boil the ocean, here's where we really want to focus and do a really good job for these folks that are coming in. These are the skills that tend to be the most popular, the most needed, maybe the weakest areas. And so that's where we've really chosen to focus this. That's not to say that maybe over time we might not add some more, but that's how we determined the top 39 skills through these 12 modules that this resource will focus on. So the learning path for this resource itself is, again, highly interactive, highly engaging, just an immersive learning pathway. We want the learners to master and to be able to apply this real world application. And so I won't walk through this front to back with you here, but all of this to say, the learner will be engaged throughout the entire learning pathway. And I'll just show you what that looks like. We'll just dive right into that actually right now. So let me pull up this screen for you. And this is that learning pathway. So I'm inside the actual product now. NHA team, if you can just give me a yes or no. Sometimes my screen doesn't transfer over, but can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So this is the learning pathway. This is what it looks like inside of the resource itself. Now, any of you that are familiar with NHA might say, hey, that kind of looks like the study guide. Or hey, if you're familiar with MedTerm or EMP, you might say, hey, that kind of looks like that. That's intentional. We want it to feel familiar to other NHA resources. Now, from an instructional design perspective, we've added in different types of engagement and engaging features along the way. So it's not monotonous, but it's familiar, it's comfortable. So I'm in the vital signs and body measurement module now. You can see here that we can click the play audio button. So all of this can be read aloud to the learner. So we start right off at the beginning of each module with an overview. The learner sees an overview here. That's not it. I clicked on the wrong thing. Here we go. Sees an overview, and they'll give information like why these concepts are important, and they'll see some performance objectives. We have different supporting resources along the way, and these pop out. And this is accessible on desktop, laptop, tablet, and phone. We'll see some, again, these supporting resources, considerations, the equipment and supplies needed, and we'll be introduced to the key glossary terms of this module. The next stop here is, I think, one of the most unique things about this resource, and that is our patient experience coach. I think this is what separates it from the pack. So there are very few actually other resources on the market that are geared towards an immersive MA clinical skills experience. There's one in particular that I can think of, but what this does is it puts the learner in the role of the patient. And as you know, particularly as healthcare employers, much of your success relates back to the patient experience, to patient satisfaction. Those are key to impacting your bottom line. And so by putting the learner in the role of the patient, it just says, hey, we're really focused on making sure that you are polished in this particular skill, but let's not forget that we're performing that skill on a person, on a human. And that's something that we often forget. Sometimes we become really focused on, hey, what's the skill? What are the steps? What do I need to do? But hey, remember that you're doing all of those things, and that relates to a human. And I'll play this video for you and give you a glimpse into what I mean by that.
Hello, I'm Latrice, your patient experience coach. Today, you're going to learn about ways you can improve the patient experience when measuring vital signs. It's important to know common things patients say following visits that include vital sign measurements. This is one of the best ways to understand the patient perspective and enable improvement in patient satisfaction for future visits. One of the major things patients report is overinflation of the cuff during blood pressure measurement. Patients often make comments such as, "I thought they would never stop squeezing my arm," or "It felt like my arm was going to fall off." This is especially true for older adult patients due to muscle atrophy and connective tissue loss. Checking the medical record to see what the patient's blood pressure normally measures is a good starting point for how high to inflate the cuff.
I'll let it stop right there. Just wanted to give you a glimpse into what that looks like. And again, it'll say, hey, we're going to dive into, again, this skill and how to perform this skill. But again, let's not forget about what the patient is feeling. Again, that's something that you're measured on, but it's something as simple as before I, check all of my boxes and do the things I'm supposed to do, maybe I should just look at this patient's record to see what was their blood pressure last time and kind of to gauge my inflation so that I'm not, making them feel like their arm's going to fall off or turning their fingers purple and providing a really uncomfortable experience for that patient. So little things like that to keep in mind as we're performing these skills as we're supposed to. Then the learner will move into a case study. So this is kind of a framing case study. It creates the context for what the learner is about to engage in and be immersed in. It kind of tends to create better engagement, but it gives them something to relate everything back to. So they're going to see this practice-centered scenario here with some related activities to open up the module. So we learn a little bit about Ruben, this 82-year-old male patient that had a stroke. We'll answer some questions about Ruben just to kind of give us something, get our gears going. And then let's be immersed in this skill. So our first skill within the vital signs and body measurement module is measuring height and weight. So the very first thing we see is this walkthrough. So here is where we actually have access to a competency checklist. This is important. This is something that maybe if you're having your candidates perform this on their own, or they go through MA SkillsBuilder Clinical on their own, and you want to have some checks and balances in the clinic with them, just check in and now let me see you do that live. I can see the areas based off of your performance in this resource that need to be scrubbed. Let's do this together now. And you have some of the checklist here. They could use those as a reference throughout their day. Maybe if you have someone that needs some additional remediation or some additional reminders as they're going throughout their day, that can be a great resource. There's a wide variety of ways that can be used. And then they see a full walkthrough of measuring height and weight. So let's uninterrupted watch a video from beginning to end of what this process looks like. And then we're going to chunk it down. So as we move to the next thing here, we see just a very short video on just those beginning steps. So let's watch those play out. Let's dive into some additional information about it, and then let's practice it. So we give these frequent opportunities to practice and assess their knowledge as they go, as we chunk down the skills step by step. So then we move into measuring weight. Again, let's look at just the steps for this, dive into those, and let's practice those. Until we complete that with all the rest of the steps. We get into measuring temperature. Again, here's our walkthrough. Here's our competency checklist, which is really important. And the full length demonstration, front to back video, and then let's chunk it down step by step. So we do that through all of the skills here. We call that our skills immersion. And then we get to the summary section. Then we have our wrap up. I like to think of this as kind of like the Spotify playlist, if you will. So it's a mini review of the concepts that we've learned up here. But instead of going back and trying to find all of the videos to watch and how to navigate those, I have kind of my Spotify playlist, if you will, right here to give me that quick mini review and that quick overview of those concepts. Maybe I'm getting ready to work with my my clinic lead or something, and I want to just overview really quickly. Or there's also some post-procedure considerations that are factored into the wrap up as well. Then we see our closing case study. So, hey, let's take everything that you've learned. Remember Ruben from the very beginning that we were introduced to. Now let's take your newfound knowledge here from your skills immersion and let's apply that back to what we learned about Ruben. So as you can see here, it's constantly engaging the learner. They're not sitting and just reading a bunch of text about a clinical skill. That's hard, right? It's hard to read about it and then I'm going to go out and do it. Those are two different things. Let's read about it and let's apply that as we go. And then let's put you in the safe environment to practice. And then we're going to go from there. So it really allows this frequent opportunity to practice throughout. We have a resources section here for the supporting resources, for the glossary, for some documentation. Now, typically at this point, that is where, if you're familiar with most NHA learnings, you could go over and take the end of module quiz. So it takes this whole module and everything that you've learned throughout. We've had kind of this frequent assessment as we go, and practice as we go. But at the very end, there's this end of module quiz, but we do that in a really immersive way, a really interactive way with MA SkillsBuilder Clinical. So here, this is going to place that learner on the job. It's going to say, hey, we're really glad that you practice those skills, but on the job, you're going to see multiple patients. You're going to work through multiple skills. So let's practice what that looks like. And I do want to just call out here, I work through the vital signs and body measurement here. I'm in eye and ear procedures in this immersive quiz. It's the link that I have available and open for this demo here today. So I know that it doesn't correlate to what we just looked at in this content. It's just for demo purposes here. So what this is going to say is, hey, let's place you on the job. Again, multiple patients, variety of skills to work through. So this says, hey, you're going to work as the MA preceptor and you're going to work alongside of Jordan, who's your MA intern. And so here are the things that you're going to see today. You're going to have somebody come in that's an emergency walk-in where you might have to irrigate one or both of the eyes, and someone else that's scheduled for a regular eye exam where you test that visual acuity, and someone else that's scheduled for a procedure where you might need to do an ear irrigation. So again, we're on the job, multiple patients, a variety of skills to work through. So we dive in here and we're being introduced to Jordan, who's our intern, and it looks like the provider has ordered a left eye irrigation for one of our patients there. So then we get started with this quiz and what is the equipment that we're going to need to perform this irrigation. So we go in and we select all of the things that we're going to need. By the way, I'm not reading this. I'm just clicking on some things. So if anyone's wondering, what in the world are you doing? I'm not reading is what I'm doing. So all the while we're tracking what the learners are saying or what they're selecting on the back end. That's how we'll do the scoring. And I'll show you a glimpse of the scoring here in just a moment. So we submit that, and then, hey, what solution how should the solution be prepared for this procedure? So, and we submit, and again, we're tracking on the back end. One thing that's really unique about MA SkillsBuilder Clinical versus some other resources on the market is I've seen some that are gated, meaning you can't move on until you provide the correct answer. That's not the case here. We do that intentionally. One, if I just have to sit and try to get the right answer, I'm probably not learning a darn thing. I'm just sitting there literally trying to get the right answer. Two, that's so dangerous. We don't want to put patients in that danger, right? So what this will do is, by and large, it'll let the candidate move on. And again, we're tracking what they're saying, and we'll show them those pitfall areas at the end. However, if we're going down a really bad path, we do have a coach or a thing that pops up that says, hey, let's take a breath, right? Let's loop you into another route, or let's come back and let's kind of rethink this. So it's not just saying, nope, keep doing it till you get it right. That's dangerous and we're not learning anything. We'll either keep going, we're going to mark that and flag that as, hey, we need to pay attention to this area. Or if it's detrimental, we'll say, let's breathe for a second and let's come over here to this thing. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So we kind of get into some of the interactivity as well. I think sometimes when we learn clinical skills, we don't do that. So we're seeing, the asking if you have any allergies. We're seeing the patient ask, is this going to hurt? That's something that we might see in practice as well. So Jordan's washed her hands and provide some gloves. And so how many gauze pads do we need? Then we'll see, what is the correct positioning for this patient, et cetera. And again, we're tracking this on the back end. So let's look at what that tracking looks like and what some of that reporting looks like. Here's a snippet of that. So we provide all of the typical NHA reporting. So if you're familiar with NHA, we invest very heavily in data and analytics, where you'll know how many times a learner has accessed a module and how long they've spent. You'll see all types of engagement analytics, and you'll see all types of performance analytics. One thing in particular that I wanted to pull up was this of, hey, did you do this task right or wrong? And then if along the way, what went wrong, right? Where do we really need to spend our time? And we look at kind of the minor pitfall and the major pitfall areas, or what was a critical pitfall. And then how did those things impact the patient? That's something that's really important as well, and something that we don't always tie that back into, which is, how did that those skills that you're performing, or those things that you're doing, how did that ultimately impact the patient? So that's the simulation reporting. Now, other things that we include, we have things like implementation guides. So again, there is a wide variety of ways that you can implement MA SkillsBuilder Clinical. Again, if you're doing your own training program and you need kind of a comprehensive learning suite, we've got you covered. As of this summer, we'll have everything, but we have many of those components available now. Maybe you just need some help with scrubbing and polishing the clinical skills. That's fine. We have that help for you here. And so this implementation guide will walk through a lot of the features and functions that I just talked about, but it'll also walk through various implementation strategies. Maybe you want to provide some tips and tricks to your candidates of, how can we scrub and polish these skills, et cetera? How do we pace them through the learning? So if this is something that we're going to do, what could that implementation look like? And we'll walk through that in the implementation guide as well. We have PowerPoint slides that go along with this. And sometimes in a healthcare system or setting, maybe you have educators and maybe you don't. You don't have to use these things, but if you do, the cool thing is you receive the PowerPoint version. So that's where you can go in and make a lot of customizations. You can kind of do some branding things, or if there's anything specific to your organization, you can make some of those things in those PowerPoint slides. If there's particular ways in which you do things, that's available to you. We do have test banks of questions as well. Again, maybe it's something that if you have new hires, or if you're just noticing some gaps and you want to do some competency checks along the way, maybe it's something that you're using for a career laddering type thing, or if it is part of an actual formal training program, these test banks of questions can be really handy. And you can push those out in a variety of ways. But, kind of the bottom line here with this facilitator toolkit is we want to take care of as much of the heavy lift for you as we possibly can. So we really want to take care of that lift for you. And if pushing some of those questions out would be helpful, we've got those for you. You can do that via your learning management system or in a live setting, et cetera. We have mapping guides. So again, this is mapped to the NHA CCMA exam test plan. It's mapped to accreditation standards. And then there's product videos as well. So communication to your candidates is something that's really important. We want to make sure that, one, any training that you do is framed up in a positive way, that they feel like they're being invested in as a candidate. Not only is recruitment a really important thing for healthcare employers right now for medical assistants, but retention is. If MAs feel invested in, and if they have an accessible and easy process, that helps, right? That helps the process. And so we're here to work with you on that. We do have some communication templates that we can work with you on. And then we have just simple product videos so that everyone feels informed along the way in terms of how to navigate through the resource and what to expect and things like that. So I'm going to pause right there. I think we have about 20 minutes left in our time together today. At this point, I would encourage you to enter any of your questions into the chat if you can. I see Marlena has joined us. Marlena is actually the owner of this product here at NHA. And if you have any questions, Marlena and I will do our best to address those. So please begin typing those into the chat now. I know a question that often comes up is, how much is this? How much is this product, or how much is the whole suite, et cetera? So this particular product, it's on its own is $90 per candidate. That's just the MA Clinical Skills Builder product itself, $90. That's the rack rate. So of course, we can get into your annual volume. We'll look at things like that to see if potentially a discount is something that you would qualify for. But just to give you a general idea, $90 is the rack rate for this resource. Any other questions? Again, feel free to type those into the chat. I know that I've seen in the chat somebody asked for, hey, is there a list of all of the skills that are covered? I do have a list here. This is not pretty, by the way. This is not, if anybody from our marketing team is on the line, take a deep breath. It's not something that you probably like from a marketing perspective, but here's just kind of the skills. So here's the 39 skills, the module that they're covered in those 12 modules. Happy to share this out, and we'll make sure that everyone has access to this, and potentially that's something that we can share with you as part of our follow-up. But I'm just kind of scrolling through it right now. I have seen that question in the Q&A come across a couple of times. Any other questions that you all may have? Marlena, if you're on the line, anything that you would like to add for our healthcare employers?
Not at this point. I'm actually pretty busy on Q&A though. Much of the questions are coming through Q&A. So okay. I'm answering those as we go. But no, I think you've covered it, and the questions are, certainly appropriate for what you presented. So okay. I can't think of anything I would add at this point.
No, that's fine. I do have a couple more questions just for the group. So if you'll hang with us here, quick poll question of, if you're interested in learning more about MA Skills Builder Clinical, we'd love to know. I'll launch this poll question out, and if you can answer that for us, we're happy to provide some follow-up information to you. You should see that poll. We're happy to again, just follow up with additional information. So if there's anything else we can provide, go ahead and select that now. I'll end the poll here in about 5 seconds. Awesome, thank you. And the last question I have for you here in our time together today is, are you interested in learning more about NHA's comprehensive MA learning suite? Again, I know that many employers are, just trying to find medical assistants and maybe potentially considering starting your own training program. And if that rings true for you, we certainly have this comprehensive learning suite available, and are happy to provide you some additional information on what that looks like. And again, I want to make clear that if you're a healthcare educator, hey, is NHA trying to put us out of business? The answer is absolutely not. We're here to work with you as well. And that's our unique position, is that we work with both. I think we can all agree that right now it's going to take everyone at the table to fill the gaps that we're seeing in this market. We're here to be a great partner in the industry. We're here to connect healthcare educators and healthcare employers, and to, again, fill these teaching gaps and fill the skills gaps to make sure that we are, again, producing quality MAs into the market and filling this much needed gap in we know you got a lot of openings. We'll put it that way. Last thing here that I will mention, in the chat, so in the chat of this meeting, Teresa, if you can drop the link to the survey. So we do have an NHA survey, and you'll see that link coming in the chat feature of this survey. There it is. Teresa has provided that there. If you would be so kind as to click on that now, so that it's in your browser, if you can answer those questions in that survey, you will be entered into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. So if you can click that link, it is in the chat now. And if you're so kind as to provide answers to that survey, you will be entered into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. We do appreciate any and all feedback, and we do really appreciate any and all feedback. That's what keeps us going. Again, we're here to advocate on behalf of the professions and the professionals that we serve. And so please feel free to provide us feedback in this form, as well as just any other time. We're here to listen and learn from you. I see a couple questions actually here in the Q&A section. I don't know if everybody has visibility to those. Are you able to print out the competency check forms? Yes. Yes, those can be printed. Can you see the status? I think, Marlena, are you providing answers to the, you'll see the times.
Yeah, I am. I'm live.
Activities completed, the quiz score. Yeah, look at you go. You're plugging along there. Marlena's answering questions like crazy.
That's where they're all coming in. Yeah,
in the Q&A. That's great. Thanks for doing that. Very good. Look at you go here, Marlena.
Yeah.
Does this give them access for a certain amount of time? So the $90, yeah. So access is for 18 months of access.
Oh, I had a year. I'm sorry. Am I wrong?
That's okay. Yeah. So it's a standard about 18 months of access. So that's really nice as well, as if you have a new hire, let's say, and we use this for a new hire, maybe they use it as part of their training program. That's something that they can go back and revisit. They can revisit if you're seeing some skills gaps, they can go back and they can do some scrubbing and the polishing with that access that they have. So that's a huge advantage for sure. Any other questions as we wrap up here? Again, do click that survey link. And again, in closing here, I just want to say, again, this session has been recorded today. We will share that out with you. You can expect that in your inbox sometime next week. We will also include the slide deck that you saw today, as well as any other relevant information about this particular resource. If you have any questions, let us know. Please do feel free to share this internally. We have an implementation kind of team and ways to support you with implementation as well. So if this is something that you're kicking around, let us know. We're here to strategize with you and kind of help you figure out what this could look like for your staff. So please know that you do have a supportive team here at NHA to assist along the way. So with that said, again, thank you for your time today. Thank you for everything that you do every day. We really appreciate all you do to serve the industry. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a good afternoon.